Welcome to Learning in the Making. I'm your host, Aran. I use the pronouns she and her. And today I am super excited to be joined by maker, educator, and community organizer, Rose Cortijo. Welcome, Rose.
Thank you. Hi. Well, I'm Rose. I use she, they pronouns. I'm really excited and grateful to be part of this wonderful learning space. Um, I've been working as an educator in the intersection of language education, technology, and social justice for about 9 years here in Lima, Peru. A few things about myself. I love video games. I love food, especially Peruvian food. And I also love playing with technology. Yes.
What is your favorite Peruvian dish?
I am a big dessert person, so I would say picarones. They're kind of like donuts, but yeah, they're a little bit different. They're very yummy.
Okay, cool. So when I come visit, I'm gonna have to try that.
Yes.
Cool. So Rose, I'm super excited to have you here today. I learn so much from you every time, every single time we talk. And I'm so excited that today we get to share that with folks. So could you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be learning together today?
Yes, of course. So today we're going to be learning about how machines learn. Um, this topic usually seems very daunting when you see it at first, but I believe there are ways of going around it and making it more accessible to people. I think it's very important for us to not necessarily become experts, but understand how technology works, how machines work, how they learned, what they can they learn the wrong things. So we're going to be working on actually creating a model, and we're going to be teaching a computer.
Teaching a computer. Cool.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. How did you get interested in this and teaching computers?
That is a great question. I became interested in machine learning specifically through a talk by Timnit Gebru. She's a computer scientist and advocate for diversity in technology. She talks a lot about the impact of machine learning. By the way, machine learning is part of what we know as artificial intelligence, AI, a very trendy topic nowadays. Um, and the more I learned from her, the more I got interested and learned from other places as well. And then I realized that machine learning is being used in a lot of different fields. Uh, I mean, yes, technology, but also at the banks, in schools, social media, and so on. I mean, it's what is getting cars to drive by themselves, right? It's using machine learning. Now, I do not consider myself an expert in the topic. I'm still learning. There are a lot of things happening also that are a lot of computer scientists are learning as well. But I am a hobbyist. I think this is an interesting topic, and something we should be talking about. I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your journey and also who inspires you or where you learned from as well.
So for this activity, we're going to learn how to build, train, and test a machine learning model. We'll be using something called an AI playground, kind of like a physical playground, but more like this one is digital where we can play around with AI. Again, AI is like the big term, and machine learning is one of the branches of AI. So sometimes you'll hear people saying AI, but they're referring to machine learning. Okay. If I were to ask you how computers learned, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is every film I've ever seen where that is a bad idea. When I honestly, this hasn't even come up in our entire time together. But now that I'm on the spot, I'm like, the first thing that comes to mind are the Terminator movies, which when I was
Okay.
little, I used to like be obsessed with. I don't know if you know, I used to be obsessed with that, and I used to watch that with my grandma, like on VHS, like every day after school.
Well, that field is called machine learning, hence the name machine learning. Um, and it's a subfield of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is pretty much a huge set of tools for making computers behave intelligently. Now, this does not mean that computers are going to replace humans. There are things that we can do that computers just cannot. So I don't see any like Terminator scenario happening anytime soon.
Good.
And machine learning is pretty much how the definition that I found that I like best was we like to define machine learning as a set of tools for making inferences and predictions from data, also known as information.
Mhm.
So this means that someone has to give the data to the computer, in this case, a person, a group of computer scientists or data scientists. So it's not like a machine can learn on its own entirely. It needs the help of experts and people. And I mean, yes, experts, but one of the greatest things I believe about machine learning is that it's opened a sort of gateway where even us mortals can apply machine learning, teach computers, create models, and solve problems.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you. I like the learning from given information. I think that's what really sticks.
Yeah. And with that information, from that learning, they can make predictions. Computers make predictions.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that reminds me of the little, like sometimes I think nowadays you might go on a website, usually like a service website or something, and then they kind of have the chat bot that pops up and you can ask it questions and it responds to you.
Yeah. Also, if you think of your inbox, how some emails go into the spam, So that is most likely because machine learning was used where they predicted which messages are most likely spam.
I see.
Why do you think people are so interested in teaching machines how to learn?
Well, I guess one, it seems like machines and machine learning can help us being humans. Like it can help us have the capacity to do more things. Or like, yeah, when I think of like a computer as a brain, and then I think about like my human brain, I think my human brain is pretty brilliant, and it can only hold so much after a certain amount of time. I forget things, or like the memories get fuzzy, and I think there's a certain I don't know, like allure or attraction about machine learning or computers learning, where we can just put so much of our information into them and
yeah. I mean, if we think about it, like if you had a huge library of books and you had to categorize them into genres, getting through that library might take us a few days, while a machine could do it in less time.
Okay, yeah. So the time aspect too. Yes.
Yeah.
Saving time.
Now, there's also something to mention here where if I show you, let's say this, a cell phone, once you see it or you see something similar, you already know that this is a cell phone. Our computer might need thousands of examples of phones to identify it as a phone. So even though, yeah, it takes less time in some cases, it is very different to how humans learn in a way, because you see something and then you can, it's like automatically saved. And you can you don't need to go back to the pictures. You don't need to look for examples. You're like, this is a phone. For a computer, it might take a lot of different examples to be able to predict whether something is a phone or not.
That makes sense.
Because phones look different, right? They could be big, small. I've seen my dad's cell phone from the 90s and it looks very different to today's cell phone.
Kind of reminds me of babies, or makes me think of babies too, and how right, like how many times a baby needs to see something or hear something or feel something before being able to differentiate. Like, actually got to see a baby that I used to care for yesterday, and she's like 2.5 now. It was really cool to see her differentiate food. She's like, I want more raspberries, please, or I want pretzels, please, or I want there's this cookie thing. She was calling it ice cream. So there's even that, right? She's like, it's white and it's fluffy, so it's ice cream, but really it was a cookie.
Right. I mean, she's making a prediction by what she sees, right? But once she tastes it, she might be like, this is not ice cream.
Exactly.
And my last question, do you think computers can learn the wrong things?
Definitely. I definitely think computers can learn the wrong things. I think they can learn the right things too. I also think what I think is right and wrong could be different from what other people think is right and wrong. So that gets really interesting, I think.
Yes. I mean, machine learning or computers depend on data. And depending on where the data comes from or who is giving this data or choosing which data to use, can have an effect on the decisions and predictions that a computer makes. So there could definitely be bias. Now, bias isn't necessarily good or bad, depending on what the use is there and the intention. So it is recommended to always try to use high quality data.
What
And
makes
also, oh, sorry.
no, I would say what makes data high quality?
Data that has been correctly categorized, data that is representative of a group of, like if we want to use data to predict what languages are spoken in Peru, I have to take samples not just from the capital city, Lima, where the most like popular language here is Spanish. I have to go to other provinces and talk to people and see what language they use. So I think it's important to be mindful of what you're including, what data and information you are including, and also think about what you're excluding or who you're excluding.
Yeah, and I'm by no means an expert in this field at all. But it makes me think about who has the power to even define these things. At Maker Ed, we've actually been in a training recently, just like around some like transformative facilitation. And the facilitator asks us like what or how we define power. And then the definition she shared was like, power is the ability to define reality and have other people accept it as so. And that's what this makes me think about, like when we're talking about high quality data or the types of data that we're including or not including, it's a lot of power to like decide what reality is.
Yeah. I mean, with great power comes greater responsibility. And yeah, I mean, if we think of the people who are creating models, they don't always look like us. They don't always reflect the communities they're working for or working with. So I do think that these are questions that we should be asking as the ones consuming, or I guess in a way being used to apply machine learning to. I think the questions should come from both sides. Not just us as users, but also the people creating. They're creating these decisions where we have to make, like they're creating these options that we have to choose from. So yeah, there's like a lot of power in that. Also, the fact that some of these people are experts, they have knowledge that
Mhm.
we don't have. So I think I think they should find ways to make this technology accessible and also state their intentions,
Mhm.
like a disclaimer.
Mhm.
I think disclaimers are important so that we can decide,
Mhm.
do we want to use this? Do we not want to use this?
Mhm.
Because I think data is information, is oftentimes our information,
Mhm.
our pictures, or voice, or text. So we should get to choose how it is used. Now that we're going to be teaching our first machine learning model, what is something you would like to teach to your model?
Hmm. What would I like to teach my model? Well, I am very into mindfulness. I think
Mhm.
who check out this video resource might know that. I'm kind of always plugging mindfulness or talking about it. So I'm interested if I could train my model to know like the habits or the qualities of like what is mindfulness, what is not.
Okay. So we have the topic in this case or theme, mindfulness. And now what we have to decide, or the information that we need to start working on our AI model, is categories. Okay, so we have the topic of mindfulness.
Mhm.
Are there different categories or perhaps like characteristics of mindfulness that we can divide into or more?
Yes, 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 yes. I think so. I think the two categories could be like mindful and forgetful.
Mhm.
I think two categories could also be like present and distracted. Um,
That's awesome. So another example, if we were using the theme or topic of food, we could separate it by perhaps cuisine type,
mm,
Peruvian food, Colombian food.
mm,
So that's great. So what we're going to do next, now that we have that information, is we have to list within that categories all our different examples or samples. So when you mentioned we separated in mindful and distracted, I believe was the word, or forgetful.
mm.
Um, what would you call something that is mindful? Like, is being present mindful? Would you categorize that as mindful?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you categorize as forgetful?
Um, like unaware, maybe.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, going back to the example of food, just so that everyone can understand this part, if I'm using, for instance, Peruvian food and comparing it to Colombian food, under the Peruvian food category, I would add all the Peruvian dishes:
Mm,
picarones, lomo saltado, ceviche, and so on.
mm,
I don't know a lot of Colombian dishes. I know about arepas. But yes, you would need to add like different dishes or, yep. So for this model to work, what I recommend is to have at least 10 samples per category.
mm,
The application will work, the AI plugin will work if you only have 2 samples for each one, but it's more fun if you have more. The more you have, the more you're teaching your model.
mm.
So we're going to go ahead now and open the AI playground. So on the right side corner, you'll see the little icon with your picture.
Yes.
And next to it, you'll see 3 dots.
Mhm.
If you click there, you'll find 3 options: my projects, projects gallery, and logout. You're going to click on my projects. Okay. Here you'll find all the projects that you save.
Mhm.
Now, a friendly reminder here, for projects to be saved, you have to always click on publish.
Mm,
Otherwise, it will not save.
Okay.
So we're not gonna go to create new, the create new option on the right hand side. Create new, the scroll down button. There we go. We're gonna click on AI model. AI model. Again, artificial intelligence is the big topic, and under that we have machine learning. So this is a machine learning model. And here you can see that we have two categories, happy and sad, with some samples below. For samples, you can use words or sentences.
Okay.
So over here, where it says happy, we would edit that and write down mindful. And on the other category, we would add forgetful, I believe it was.
Yes.
And under that, we will add some samples. If you want, you can add just a couple.
Great. And I will say, a friendly tip is to spell things correctly or how you want them to be spelled. I don't know correctly, but just I've made spelling errors before, and then it completely, that's what the model learned. And then when I spelled
Yeah.
it right, it didn't know what I was talking about because in the original, what I trained it to, I had spelled it wrong. So just plugging that. Okay, so some words I'm adding for mindful. When I think about mindful, I think about being present.
Mhm.
I can say that, being present. I say feeling calm, feeling grounded is a word I like to use. Say being aware or having awareness.
Okay.
What else? Mindful. I don't know. And say breathing deeply, noticing how you feel or what's around you. That's a big
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay.
7.
I love those samples.
Yeah. Do you have any to add?
I'm thinking, but no,
Uh,
not at the moment.
let's see. I guess I could also put the word mindful. I didn't put
Mhm.
and say mindfulness.
What
That's
is another word for present?
um I think aware.
Okay.
For
And we
me,
have that one. Yeah.
I think
Could
be
you write conscious? Does
oh
it
yeah,
have?
yes. Did I spell that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We got 10.
Awesome. So now we're going to move on to the next category, forgetful, and add a few samples there.
Okay. So I'm gonna write distracted. I also want to say that the forgetful list doesn't mean bad. It just means that when we are feeling these things, we're not necessarily being mindful in the moment, but that isn't necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. And I actually think that there are ways that people who are mindful, like they might be present, they might be calm and all these things, but they still might not make good choices or the best choices or like choices that
Yeah,
are harmful.
that's true.
So just throwing it out there that like mindful and forgetful don't mean like good and bad. They're just different states of being. Um, I would say anxious. When I feel anxious, I do not feel very mindful, which I do feel anxious a lot. And then I use mindfulness to bring me back to the present moment.
Maybe absent.
Ooh, yes. Absence. Unaware.
Mhm.
Let's see. Um, Inattentive. Um, thoughtless or like uncaring, maybe.
Mhm.
Do you have any that you want to add?
Neglectful. You mentioned distracted.
I guess I could put forgetful as well.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Maybe not noticing how you feel
Mm,
or what's around you.
yes, not noticing how you feel or what is around you.
I wouldn't say unconscious because that would not be a good thing. If you're unconscious.
No. But
What about mindless? Would
oh
that work?
yes,
Okay.
that works perfectly.
Now to save that one, we have to click enter. Yes, press enter. Otherwise, it won't save the last sample you added. Awesome. So we have our model. Now, what comes next is training the model. We're going to teach it. We're going to teach it all these things. So we're going to click on train model. Now, you're going to see a little chart and you will see that on the left, the word loss will appear. And below, you will see the word epoch. Epoch just means like the revolutions, the times that is looking at the information. And loss means like the possibility for error. At the beginning, it will be quite high because it doesn't know anything. And you will see how that changes while you train the model. So let's go ahead and click on train model. So there we go, training in progress, epochs complete, so far 0. It has to get to 1500. And loss is like up to 1, I believe, the little dot there for loss, yes. So it doesn't know anything yet.
So the epochs are like I don't know, like the machine reading this information. So it's like the machine has to read this information.
Yeah.
Like
every time the machine is processing the new information.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So 1500 is like, when it gets to that, it's like 100% prepared. If it's like at 100, it's like 1 out of 100. Like it's getting there, right? But it doesn't know everything yet. We have to give it time. Now this part might take a couple of minutes. So let's give it a chance. And let's wait for the computer to learn. I kind of wish, this reminds me of the Matrix, when Neo is like, when he wants to learn something, they just plug him in and give him like a few minutes and then he already knows like a new skill. Okay, here we go. So as you see, the loss, I guess, number is going down because it's learning. And we're out of 100 out of, we're 100 out of 1500, yes. Okay.
Our model is trained.
Yes, awesome. So just so we don't lose what we've done so far, we're going to click on publish. And we're going to edit the name of our model. Let's go to those 3 dots and look for my projects to make sure it's there. You can click anywhere and it will exit that window. Yeah. My projects.
3 dots, my projects. Okay, it's
there. So we'll click on your AI model and we're going to test it. We're going to click on tested. Okay. So now we are going to input either a word, a question, or a sentence, and we're going to see what the model predicts.
Okay. Any sentence?
Yes. Related, of course, to mindful or forgetful, like maybe how somebody's feeling at the moment.
Okay. Don't say right now I feel very present.
Awesome. So we'll press enter. And now below we'll see the word title prediction, and we'll see that mindful is highlighted. And there's a number next to mindful that's 99.86. So the model is 99.86% sure that you're referring to mindful. And for forgetful, it says 0.14%, 0.14, because that's how certain it is that you're talking about something related to being forgetful.
Nice.
And let's try another sentence. Or word, maybe.
Let's see. Sometimes I get distracted. By sometimes, I mean often.
Okay. So here, from what it's learned, it's making a prediction. So it's saying that it's 99% sure that you're referring to forgetful. It's predicting that it's forgetful. And 1% sure that it's mindful. That's pretty good. Now, what if we ask a question or we say something, I don't know. What if we play around with some of the language that we use? Or perhaps like, I feel tomato, just something random. I feel tomato today.
Okay. I feel tomato today.
Okay. Now, this is interesting, right? It says that it's 99.50, like it predicts that you're talking about someone or being mindful. And tomato is not really like a feeling here.
Yeah, not at all. It's a fruit.
So it doesn't have that information yet. It's trying to make a prediction based on what it knows. Based on what it knows, or synonyms of what you're writing. So let's type in dancing.
Yeah, I'm just curious what's going to happen.
Okay. And it's connecting it or predicting it as mindful.
Interesting. I'm curious, where is it getting this information?
Probably looking at synonyms or words that are similar or have to do with sleeping. But it's unrelated, right?
Yeah.
It's really unrelated. What if we wrote, I am not, oh, wait a second, where is it? I am not feeling mindful today. I am not feeling mindful today.
I am not feeling mindful today.
Okay. Now, this is predicting it as something mindful, yet we know that it would actually be more on the end of forgetful. But it hasn't learned this yet, but it yet is making a prediction based on what it knows. Now, if we want to add more samples to our categories, it is not like we can edit the model. It pretty much starts again. It learns from scratch again. So we cannot edit or remove parts without it starting all over again, like the learning process or the training process.
Okay.
We can remove information, add new information, but it's not like the model continues like learning. You just remove everything and it will start training one more time, like from scratch from the beginning.
Okay.
Awesome. Now, some questions here. This is a low stakes scenario. So let's say that you are creating a bot that where you input how you're feeling,
Mhm.
and it tells you whether you're feeling mindful or forgetful.
Mhm.
I would say that's a low stakes scenario or setting.
Mhm.
Um, and if you were to get something like what we just got, where you say, I am not feeling mindful, and it says, oh, you're feeling mindful today. And you're like, what? Um, this is like something we're playing around with.
Mhm.
So we know not to take it too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what if you had something like an app um, that is supposed to be your companion or is supposed to help you with your mental health?
Mm. Okay.
Um, the information that it gives you might make a different kind of impact.
Mhm.
We could call this like a mid stakes setting
Mm.
where it matters a lot what it says.
Mm.
And so we have to be mindful of who's using this, the data we're giving to this model that is being used.
Mhm.
If we think of a high stake setting, what if the model is making decisions such as who gets more jail time and
Mm.
who doesn't,
Mhm.
who gets a loan and who doesn't.
Mhm.
So um, I don't know that models should be making those decisions.
Mm.
It probably simplifies things, but again, we are talking about human beings.
Mhm.
Human beings are complex. They don't share all of their experiences.
Mm.
And I can think of an example, for instance, with what's happened with the pandemic.
Mhm.
Maybe you used to pay your bills on time and you stopped for obvious reasons. Um, the bank might not be as forgiving.
Mm.
Their model might not consider, hey, this person is in the middle of a pandemic. They might have lost their job. They're really hardworking. They usually pay on time, but this happened to them.
Mhm.
And that makes a decision for you that affects your life
Mm.
and the life of many others. So we have to think about the technology we're using and the setting that we're using it in.
Mhm.
And if we should be using it in that setting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
again, I believe there are things that computers cannot do and that should be left up to people.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's important to think about those things. And I had some reflection questions for us to think about
Okay.
here. Let's see. Mm, okay. I'm thinking right here of, let's say, what topics should a training model capture? Are there topics that should be off limits to training models?
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yes, I think I agree with you. There should be topics that training models are that are off limits to training models. I think particularly the ones you said around like jail time or law
Mhm.
issues. Um, yeah, I think I don't. This is also like where bias gets like super complex for me. So like when I think about the loan example,
Mhm.
um, and thinking about like myself as a Black queer person, and it's almost like would I have a better chance going into a bank and talking to someone who may or may not be biased, right? Or have like their perceptions of what I think or what they think I can and cannot do or deserve and
Mhm.
things like that. Or should I take my chances with like a computer system um, that might just run the numbers? Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like those are yeah, I don't know. It feels that feels complex to me. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it is complex. And this is not to say that, again, computers are not evil or good. They depend on data,
right.
and the data is given by people. Also, people might have an idea of what they want to do, and something might go completely differently.
Mm.
So there are cases, scenarios where, for instance, there is this project happening now, I believe, where people with disabilities, when it comes to speech, are training models to understand them.
Mm.
And that's huge.
Mm.
Because when we look at samples, at times it's people who have no difficulty speaking, people who actually have a voice. What if you cannot speak? How could you communicate? And unless you had the resources to have an interpreter or someone who can help you communicate, um, you might not have a voice or get to have a voice. So in these cases, training a model with different samples that's more representative of people, for instance, with disabilities, would be amazing.
For,
So
for sure, yeah.
yes, I think there are topics and fields where it can make our lives better.
Yeah.
But I think there are also topics and fields where it's questionable. And I think we still need people around.
Mm.
We still need people to be the ones um, responsible, right? Like not just let something make a decision, but a group, and consider like the context, the like the setting and everything else, and also the fact that there is a person in front of you. I'm thinking here of agriculture in Peru. I mean, the city depends a lot on that to feed like the whole city or the country, and sometimes that technology is not available
Mm.
to people or people working in agriculture. So I think there's a responsibility. Okay, you have that knowledge, you should share that knowledge so they can do it too, so they can learn from it and make their lives easier as well,
Mm.
and also understand how things work, because that might give them additional ideas. Who knows?
Mm.
And I think creativity is something that should be shared with everyone. Everyone gets a right, should have the right to be creative and like use that creativity for something great or even something silly. um, I'm all for making random things or things that make no sense, just to see what happens. Um, yeah. And well, my last question is, who gets to envision the future of machine learning?
Mm. I hope we all do. That's my hope. I hope we all do. I know that there are some people who get to think about this all the time, and some people who have never thought about this ever, or don't, or don't have access to it. I think it's interesting to think about like the education coding movement here in this
Mhm.
States in particular, or like in San Francisco, and just thinking about like um, I don't. There's a big push to like teach kids how to code, but I also hope there's like just as much of a push to think like this at the higher level of not just like how do I make something show up on the screen, uh,
Mhm.
but like why am I making something show up on the screen, and what are all the possibilities of the things that can make show up on the screen. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's where I believe we should contextualize things. Um, I think when we make something as children, we usually ask why we're doing them.
Mhm.
And that is a fair question. And oftentimes it's like, okay, we're doing something to meet that criteria or meet the objective of the lesson.
Mhm.
But there is just as much value in not getting to the objective and going elsewhere. And also there's just as much value if we or schools decide to learn about agriculture in their country or in their province, how that works.
Mhm.
I think coding is great, learning to code or learning how it works because or I mean, it's there. We're interacting with it. Um, the ethics of it are not completely clear yet. I know that there are people advocating for that, which is great. But as you mentioned, like, I think we should get to learn a little bit about everything.
Mm.
And also, I mean, everything's necessary. Learning is great.
Yeah.
I know that in Peru, they're also encouraging computational thinking and coding and machine learning and AI and everything. But and those are hard skills, like great skills to learn, right? But let's not forget like about the other skills that are needed and are just as important, so that when we get out there and we become experts, we make mindful decisions.
Mhm. Totally. Totally. What like what do you want teachers to be excited about when teaching this? So if a teacher was going to do this with their class, with their
Mhm.
student, what would you want them to feel excited about?
I want them to feel excited about testing things,
Mm.
trying things out, seeing what happens, um, not being scared of not knowing, learning collectively with the students. There are students who know a lot of things, and also excited about the questions you can ask and where it can lead the conversation. um, I think it's a very relevant topic. And again, there are new technologies that are going to come along that are going to become trendier. I mean, now cryptocurrency and whatnot is like everyone's talking about it, and NFTs.
Mhm.
So again, it's a tool, and there's no limit to what we can learn and share, even though we might not be experts in the topic. I think just sharing what is out there is great, because it might interest someone. It's like, hey, I could do this. And maybe they could think of their context. Okay, this could help my mom
Mm.
decide what to cook on, like, or actually, that's not a great example because, you know, but I don't know, like, if I want, I don't know, for my computer to identify when I'm sad or when I'm happy by reading my face,
Mm.
that could be a fun project.
Mm.
Or if I wanted to, I don't know, the sky's the limit,
Yeah.
but I do want them to be excited about learning something, and being okay with not knowing everything also
Mm.
about the topic. For me, this was like a whole challenge in itself. Is like, I understand it, but now how do I communicate what I understand? And I'm
Mm.
not an expert, but it's like I know this much and I want to share that. um I wish I had that when I was younger, because I think a lot of people underestimated me and perhaps a group of people that I was studying with, and just thought that I would be interested in just one thing, like in this case, medicine, because medicine somehow made sense to people. But I was also interested in other things, just nobody mentioned it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I resonate with that.
And I actually welcome people to continue the conversation elsewhere, think about the things that we've talked about today. And yeah, again, it's never a lot of information is now available to a lot of different people. So I try to take advantage of that, uh, and learn and try things and have fun with it,
Mhm. Yes,
while
yes.
being mindful, while being mindful.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you so much, Rose. It has been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you for joining us here at Learning in the Making. I have really learned so much from you and just have enjoyed talking with you over the past month or so, while we've been collaborating. I have really enjoyed it. And
Me too.
I know that you are doing powerful things there in Lima, Peru. And I'm excited to continue to see what you do.
Thank you. It was great.
Yeah.